So if your ground rent reaches beyond 0.1% of your property's value, which is about £500 in London, £250, which is why the cap is there in the rest of the country, it basically makes your property unmortgageable. You can't sell it, you can't remortgage, and then you're trapped in your flat.
The government has announced that ground rents will be capped at £250 a year for leaseholders in England and Wales. Under the plans, new leasehold flats will be banned and existing leaseholders will get the right to switch to commonhold. But Steve Reed, the government minister, told us there would be no compensation for landlords. We do have a lot of questions about this policy, which only came out at 7 o'clock this morning. Martina Lees is a senior property writer at the Sunday Times and joins us now in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it is quite a big change. It maybe doesn't go quite as far as the Labour government had promised in its manifesto, where it talked about peppercorn rents. But £250, is that going to be a good news for a lot of people?
Yes, it will help some people. Leasehold is a feudal system. It comes from William the Conqueror, who basically gave land to his lords and they leased it to tenants and had the right to take it back. So we still have that. England and Wales is the only countries in the world that still have this. What the changes won't, what it does do is it will help people with high ground rents who can't get a mortgage and therefore can't sell their flats and pay high charges for nothing at all. But what it won't do is remove the income stream that makes leasehold today such a lucrative investment class for pension funds and also less scrupulous landlords who might be offshore, who basically use the income from your flat or your house, they're still leasehold houses, to line their pockets. So the bigger change is the legal making it easier for people to switch to commonhold, which means you own your flat and you're building jointly with your neighbours, which gives you control. So that is something that wasn't possible up until now. So it's going to become easier, and they're also consulting on making that the default for new flats and banning leasehold on new flats. But the ground rent reforms, it's going to be £250 as a cap, and then in 40 years it will reduce to peppercorn, which is nothing.
Okay.
So what it does do is gives a signal to the industry to say this is not a lucrative investment anymore. So you've got time to phase out. It's a fudge. So it will help the government to not be sued by leaseholders who worry about
that's the big question, isn't it? Will the government face legal action in this area? I mean, they already have seen some legal action against the potential. So will that materialise now?
Well, there was a court case brought by a lot of freeholders who didn't want to lose being paid lots of money for extending your lease. They lost. They were claiming that it infringed their human rights. So those are expensive court cases and they can go on for a long time. So the government's trying to avoid that here. So I think on balance, it's a reasonable compromise.
What I'm interested to know is that how much money do people make? Because if it's 250 quid a year, is that going to, I think the point that you're trying to get to, Kate, is that can people still make money from it? Because it is a ridiculous, my first flat was a leasehold and I just couldn't understand why I didn't own the place and why I had to pay this ground rent.
Yes, it's not a lot of money, but what it does, it makes an ongoing income stream, and it also gives the fact that it's there, the freeholder to levy service charges for upkeep, consent fees for making any changes to your flat. They can forfeit your flat, so take it back if you owe them any money, and give you nothing back, which is they now ending, which is a draconian measure. So it is all these other things that's linked to it. So and that is why the switch to commonhold is really the bigger answer. Capping ground rent is a part of the answer, but it's not all of it.
Well, it's a good news story for lots of people around the country this morning, and we will wait to see the details. Steve Reed said it will come in before next Parliament, so that will be good news. Martina Lees, thank you very much for joining us this morning on the programme.
Why has the government done these leasehold reforms? Why has it happened now?
Well, it's been dragging on for years and years and years. And it's basically there's been kind of growing uproar from leaseholders because there are more of them. More people live in flats, and that's how we own flats in this country, basically. In the large, although there are leasehold houses, but they've been banned anyway. So the point of that is you've got increasingly high service charges, which are making them very unaffordable to live in. Ground rents are just another thing that goes into that. So if your ground rent reaches beyond 0.1% of your property's value, which is about £500 in London, £250, which is why the cap is there in the rest of the country, it basically makes your property unmortgageable. You can't sell it, you can't remortgage, and then you're trapped in your flat. So this has been kind of a growing thing for a very long time. On the other hand, you've got freehold investors. They own the actual apartment block itself and the ground that it sits on, which is why it's called ground rent. And they basically charge you rent for the ground beneath your flat that you don't own. And that investment is actually how some people invest in them for a few £1,000s at auction, not that expensive. And then they put clauses in your leasehold contract that says this amount, this ground rent, doubles every 10, 15 years, or it rises by inflation by RPI usually. And that means that it can just grow and grow exponentially, and that their investment keeps up with inflation.
Yeah.
And obviously people trapped in these flats aren't able to mortgage or sell if it reaches beyond a certain point.
So the difference this is going to make for leaseholders, obviously it'll make a difference in that they will no longer struggle to mortgage their properties or sell their properties because they won't have risen beyond that threshold, like you said. Is it likely to actually save them much money in terms of month by month? Because presumably the big impact that these people face can be service charges that I assume are still uncapped.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they are uncapped. Yes, I mean, in some cases, I've spoken to people that have got £3,000, £5,000 a year service charges.
Amazing.
Sorry, it's not service charges, ground rent. And it's, so yes, for some people it will, but they are the extreme case. Most people, yes, it is a nominal sum they have to pay every year, but frankly, it stops you from getting on with your life. You can't sell, you can't buy a house, have kids. It's, that in many ways is just as damaging as having a huge expense.
And look, what role did Angela Rayner play in making this happen? Because she's been sort of closely associated with it.
Yeah, so of course she was the former housing secretary. So she knows all about this and this general subject. And, she said, look, we made a manifesto promise. We need to show that we're on the side of, ordinary people in flats, not freehold investors. And so she led kind of this rebellion from the backbenches to say, let's get a move on. And the reason why they haven't been able to get a move on for quite a long time is because a bunch of freeholders took the government to court in the summer, took them to the High Court to say you're infringing our human rights, you're taking away our right to own property here. The High Court went down on the side of the government and said, yes, you have the right to own property, but not the right to profit from it. So they actually wanted initially to abolish ground rents because in the letter from the backbenchers, Angela Rayner kind of head up, they said it's money for nothing. You shouldn't be charging it anyway. So this is almost kind of, it's good because it moves people on with their lives, but it is also a compromise. It's saying, look, we don't want to be mired in all this legal stuff forever. So we're going to say you can have the ground rent investments, but we're going to cap it so people can move on with their lives.
Yeah, okay, so very much a compromise. Thank you very much indeed, Melissa Yorke. Melissa is the Times' assistant property editor.